Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you. Hopefully you are doing well today. Welcome to Tech Talk. My name is Tri Nguyen. I am the product manager and sales manager here at ZYXEL. Um, Hoping that you are having a great day. Today we're going to be talking about um, how to secure hotspots and making them available, especially during these times right now, where people are looking for ways to get internet access while they're either waiting in line, practicing social distancing and all that fun stuff, and being just available, being able to use those connectivities to still stay connected when they are at different places. So I will talk about how we here at ZYXEL can help you with securing those kinds of networks and also maybe how to monetize them as well, since a lot of them are free. And we'll talk about that too. We love this to be a little bit interactive if you can. There's a Q&A section and also a chat box if you'd like to send me any kind of messages or questions that you have when we go through this webinar. But we'd love to hear from you and get your feedback in line, and I'll try to answer them as much as I can. But again, it's good to see you, and it's good to be here and talk about this technology. So let's go ahead and jump right in. If you've been here before, this is just a little bit of an overview of who ZYXEL is. We are ZYXEL Networks. We've been in business for 30 years, 100 million devices making connections worldwide, 600 employees in the ZYXEL network side of the things. 700,000 businesses use our solutions in 150 markets. We're internationally recognized for our innovation and our design. We've got awards around the world for what we produce and what we make in our hardware. And these are just a few of the things that we have that we've won recently. Especially on the security side, we take pride in the fact that we are certified with ICSA Labs for now 20 years, taking that distinction, very distinguished distinction there for just a few vendors. I think there's only 5 vendors that are distinguished in that regard to be able to say that they have been certified for 20 years. So now over 20 years to do that continuously for our products, meaning that it's interoperable. It's also how we've implemented our firewalls and our VPNs, everything like that is all interchangeable and the way that it's supposed to be. We are solution driven as well. So we work with our clients, our partners in a way where, because we do the R&D of our software and we do help to design and we design our hardware, we have this whole system that you can give us feedback with, providing us critical field information about what your customers need and feed that back to us so that we know, hey, we should add these functionalities to make your life easier, to make your customers' lives easier from a networking perspective. So definitely take advantage of that. I think that's where one of the differences that we have, being able to work with our partners closely with that information and be able to provide product to the market that fulfills your needs. So we're a solution-based security appliances, wireless solutions, connectivity with switches with 10 gig uplink, multi-gig connectivity, gateway hotspots, which is what we'll talk about today, and network management, both standalone, CLI, and in the cloud. So just to jump right in, the average user right now checks their phones about 85 times and spends about 5 hours a day on their phone, usually either they're mobile or on Wi-Fi. So either when they're on home, like I am right now, I'm on a home Wi-Fi network, and usually if I go to the office, I'm on their Wi-Fi network. If I go anywhere else, we're all talking about hotspots when we jump in, right? We try to stay off of a lot of times we try to stay off of the mobile line or the cellular line, just either because of the data plan, or if there's not an unlimited, you have some gigs that you want to do, or you want to do something that's either streaming media or accessing larger files, things like that, where Wi-Fi is more suitable for it. So everybody is doing a lot of hotspot jumping. So I know we're saving a lot of cellular data in the process by going to these different Wi-Fi hotspots. And we all do the same thing when we go over to our friend's house or to a restaurant or to any kind of public place. First thing you do is, hey, what's the Wi-Fi here, right? Or you ask your friend, what is your Wi-Fi access? Can I get Wi-Fi access? And it's pretty common, nowadays, that we're just really kind of, our minds are really set in the fact that, hey, we're looking for the next hotspot to go to, because typically hotspots are offering higher speeds, they're offering just better connectivity, and of course, it doesn't use your data cell plan in the process. There's 7 billion businesses will be connected to the internet in some way this year. So there's a lot of different businesses that are just out there, 20 billion devices connected to the internet. That's a lot of devices when there's only, what, 6 billion people in this world, but there's a lot of devices. I know in our house, when we look at Wi-Fi in general, you see a lot of different devices that are connected. I think we have probably 20 or 30, with all the smart devices, the smart TVs, the mobile devices, the tablets, the PCs, everything is all connected to the Wi-Fi network. And it's the same thing when you do go to like a public hotspot or to a hospitality kind of area. You're connecting multiple devices, 4 or 5 devices at a time. Sometimes I'm bringing, my Nintendo Switch with me or something like that to play, either on the plane, in the airport, at the hotel, wherever it may be. We want to have some sort of connectivity. So there's a lot of devices that are all interconnected using Wi-Fi hotspots. And that's where we expect it. We expect that Wi-Fi will be everywhere, even in hospitals, of course, in restaurants and cafes, hospitality when we're in the hotels, that's a given, even in education now and in retail, right? Our expectations when we walk into there, and the expectation from the end user, like you and I, when we go into any one of these places, is that the hotspot typically is free, right? There's free Wi-Fi, and it's usually an open Wi-Fi. But there's also very many challenges that come into play. When you have something that's public, sometimes it can be abused if it's not taken care of. That's where security comes into play. And also it could be abused by, just downloading, like people using it for things that they shouldn't be. We're trying to offer an amenity, you can imagine it's like a pool. If you have an amenity at a pool at a hotel, if people abuse it by, doing things in the pool that they shouldn't and causes it to disrupt, everybody else's service to be able to use that pool, that's where you have to come in and hey, set some rules, set some guidelines to make sure that it doesn't happen. So there's a lot of those kinds of things that we see even in our projects, in our customer base, that they're actually going out, either revamping technology to make sure that it is not only better, but also more secure for the end user. And also it helps with the person, the client that's doing that free access. And a lot of times they're providing that free access. Again, that's our expectation, that it's free and there's no way to monetize, meaning that, it's an amenity that just costs money to upgrade. So there's a lot of hesitancy from maybe your customers when you come in and say, hey, we have this new technology, we can provide you this more secure kind of to revamp your network to provide better service to your customers. They're really hesitant because they're like, well, I give them a free service and it's just like, that's what I want to afford, or that's what I have budgeted. I don't want to go beyond my means to give you the best, awesome, most high-tech solution there is out there. And it's all in my pocket, right? And I get nothing back from it except for maybe you coming in visiting. I mean, that's part of it too, right? A lot of hotels, they have to kind of get to a certain tier, because I know you and I, if you've traveled in business and you stayed at a hotel that had bad hotspot, had bad Wi-Fi, next time you either complain to them or you say, hey, next time I'm not staying here, right? So that does affect business a lot. But how do we monetize that? And how do we secure it? That's kind of a big thing that I can help you also communicate to your customers as well in these kinds of areas. So why is security important? I think that because I come from the product management side of security products, I think security is always in my forefront, because there's always ways that people can misuse the connection if you don't have it kind of secure, or if you have no visibility in what's going on. Threats now lurk everywhere. So any network, whether it be a public hotspot, wide open networks, there has to be some sort of security there to make sure that there's no spread of ransomware, cryptojacking, malware that could just be disseminated, inappropriate content in public hotspot areas. Malicious malware can make their way through any networks right now, go through file shares, it looks for new hosts. So anybody who's on that network could potentially be a victim of what's going on the network. So really taking advantage, how do we get visibility of it? A typical stateful packet inspection technologies is not enough. You can't just allow all types of traffic and all sites to just be wide open. I've gone to hotspot places where people just have inappropriate things just opened up and left there on purpose, just as a prank. It's just kind of a bad image overall. So how do we do that? How do we control it? How do we control people from going to a hotspot and downloading illegal music, illegal software through your hotspot? Because they just do that, then they go. It doesn't matter, and who's who's liable. It ends up being the owner of the restaurant or the internet provider or the managed service provider who didn't lock it down, right? There's a lot of blame that could be happen there, and especially if there's no visibility, no sort of device that gives you any information of what's happening, who is it, and even how to block it, that becomes a huge issue, and that could be a big problem. So definitely security is important in that regard. So ZYXEL security products do have kind of a frontline defense system, antivirus, malware connectivity. It's, preventing malware dissemination throughout the network. It can detect that as it's passing through and kind of take action on that, or at least to alert, alarm, let you have that information of what's going on. Content filtering is probably the biggest one that I always see at these hotspots, being able to scare down, illegal websites, or certain sites that just aren't appropriate, right? So being able to block maybe torrent sites where people may be using to find ways to download illegal movies or illegal files, even to be blocking streaming. It depends, and this is how I've seen people monetize the streaming aspect. You and I are always on the move, on the go, connected, and our entertainment tends to be YouTube, tends to be Netflix. So even while we're out and about, a lot of times we're connected in that way, doing some sort of streaming service as we're waiting in lines, and the lines are getting longer. How do we deal and cope with that? We're watching things on our screens, right? So how do we control that to prevent it from being abused to the point where no one else gets access? So we can offer things within the hotspot system, and I'll talk about how to monetize, where we have free access for your normal connectivity, web surfing, getting emails and things like that, but then offer a very, cost-effective, very value add of a service plan. Let's say it's $1 per connection, right? Just a single dollar gives you a higher bandwidth tier, allows you to get and watch YouTube and all those kinds of things. We allow for those services, and then be able to use that as a monetizing thing. And you think about that, for $1, if you're willing to buy a cup of coffee, anything like that, if you want that kind of access, if you put it at a price it's very nominal, like $1, or gives you access for the rest of your day there in that location, or for the rest of the time that you're there, that's really not that much. So if you count it up, if you got 10 people to do that, right, per day, and that's very possible, 10 people at $1 a day, and then 30 days in a month, you got $300 a month of revenue just purely by offering kind of another tier. We're still offering the free tier for people who go, hey, I just want to have free access, check my email, check some websites, things like that. Great, right? But that allows for you to give you some sort of monetization on there. Layer 7 application intelligence. This is very important to make sure that you block connectivity for like BitTorrent or illegal downloads or files that shouldn't be allowed to be using your network for that, so for those purposes. So blocking it at the application itself, not just blocking ports, because a lot of those ports can be used, a lot of those files or a lot of those applications use other ports. So you can't really block them all. In fact, it even uses sometimes port 80 or port 443, just your normal web surfing ports to get connectivity. So we have to block it at the application itself. And be able to just like shape it. So and this also gives you, because you can block it, this is how you monetize it as well. You can say, hey, you can use these types of applications in this tier, right? So you can have a tiered billing services in your hotspot that says, hey, this is the premium access. So this is perfect for hotels who want to offer internet connectivity, but then be able to say, hey, you're going to get VPN access, information. You can get highest speed connectivity for your YouTube, your Netflix streaming. We offer streaming on it. Then people are willing to pay that extra, $5 a day or whatever it may be that you want to charge, and do a lot of revenue share. We have some business cases where we've worked with some customers, especially in the hotel, that allowed for them to do the Netflix streaming and things like that on the Wi-Fi connection at a higher tier. And then there was a revenue share where actually the partner came in and said, hey, we're going to offer this service. We're not going to charge you for any of the hardware. We're going to do all the installation, everything like that. All we ask is here's a rev share, where the hotel gets a cut, and the MSP gets a cut of that that daily kind of upgrade, right? So all of the incremental revenue there, and that just works out to many hundreds of dollars a month potentially for that hotel, not only for them to get extra revenue, but also for the partner too, to recoup all of the costs. And it's actually a really good proposition to go into a hotel and say, hey, I'm going to do this installation, put the newest technology in without you even paying a dime. In fact, you're going to get monthly revenue from it, right? So that's kind of a win-win for everybody in that kind of situation. IP enforcement capabilities to block access to maybe outside the country, or maybe countries that shouldn't be there. So you can actually block them by location, by country themselves, either outbound or inbound. So again, securing yourself as well as securing people going out, preventing things to go wrong. Wi-Fi is the big thing, right? Everywhere's hotspot is Wi-Fi based. And so in a recent survey, 80% believe that they will deploy the next generation of Wi-Fi because it is an improvement to quality and the experience of the quality, right? People with Wi-Fi, if you have bad connectivity, bad cell signal, bad whatever Wi-Fi connection, you tend to go find another place and do get a better connection. So quality of the connection itself is very important. And now with applications, like I said, streaming, Netflix, all that kind of stuff, it's using up a lot more bandwidth, and there's a lot of competing devices in that network causing interference, all kinds of things that come into play. So not only are you having to secure it, you're having to make sure that the hotspot itself is up to par with expectations of what the clients want and what they can use it for. If you go to a hotspot and you can't stream anything, you can't visit any websites because it's too slow to load, a lot of times you're going to be out of there, right? You're not going to stay, or you're going to have a very bad experience where you may not even come back, even though the food may be great or the coffee is good. You may not come back because it's just the connection while you're there is just not good. So we got to take care of that. So there's some issues where you want to be able to have higher speeds, which then causes you to use more channels in order to do that with that wireless technology. And of course, you have growing demands in those applications that I told you about. And there's a lot of performance issues that come into effect when that happens, when you have more devices, more applications running, more traffic needed. And so there's less buffer room in terms of error, or less room for mistakes. So a lot of this in the environments that were out there, especially in public hotspots, it's caused by co-channel interference. I just had a question about call-in info. I think you can call in. There should be an audio button that lets you pick the phone number. So I don't know if they can hear me though. I'll have to answer that later, unfortunately. All right, so what is co-channel interference? It's basically when you have multiple devices trying to use the same stream. So the analogy here is a traffic, a motorway where you have two highways, two motorways merging together with no, signaling, no indication. They're just going for it. So two cars just merging together, trying to use the same space, the same time space as with each other. And that causes collisions. And with traffic, with any kind of data, when there is collisions, it has to retry. So it retries again and tries to submit it again. So it's a constant battle. And you can imagine as you get into a larger scenario where there's more and more lanes, more and more devices all trying to go in, that becomes a big issue to try to get traffic to pass through efficiently. So that's called co-channel interference, because we're using all those channels. We're getting interference from each other devices. And so how do we deal with that? So traditional methods in dealing with co-channel interference is something like this. Let's say you have an office space, or in a hotel, or let's say this is in a classroom type thing. You have multiple access points that are serving that area, right? And so you have some co-channel interference because the coverage overlaps. The signaling, the utilization, there's always some sort of interference that goes on there. So the way that you normally do it with traditional things is you turn down the power, right? So we turn down the power to reduce the interference, but then we turn down also the coverage area. So now there's dead spots because there's less coverage. So people who are sitting in those opposite spaces right there on those desks no longer have access to the connection. You know, this is just a dramatization, right? So normally an access point has much bigger coverage, but we're just doing this for an example. So there's no overlap. It reduces the interference, but then there's no overlap of coverage as well. So this also causes some lower throughputs because of the reduced channel width that's available. So it doesn't really remove it completely in terms of interference, because some of these devices are then also trying to connect to both access points at the same time. And so that also causes some issues there. But overall, that's what co-channel interference. So what do we do with that? How do we handle that? So we have a technology that is called smart antenna technology. And this is an example of what happens here. In a non-smart scenario, if you have interference at, let's say, a microwave or something on the distant end, and it's causing interference. So this could be an access point. This could be other devices. It could be, but here in this case, let's say a microwave or some sort of things like that have some sort of interference. So it's causing interference with the communication of this traffic on those other devices that are on the opposite side. And that's with your traditional. Now with the smart antenna technology, we actually can scan and look for the last 700 different patterns. We look at that and look for an optimized shape and look for the beam that will be able to focus its information or its energy to those clients and communicate with them one by one. So you can see in this example, the beam actually ignores what is behind it with all those interference and mitigates that. And it's kind of like my example here is always you cup your ears, you can listen better, you know, to the direction that you are. You don't hear as much and behind you. And also you're talking louder as well because you're focusing your voice that way in one direction and it's not going around you, right? So that's kind of the overall idea of how smart antenna technology works. So we have smart antenna technologies in all of our like higher end class. You might be used to our WAC, that's our AC version of our 6500 series is the high end of our AC that has smart antenna technology. And in our business class, our new WAX, which is our Wi-Fi 6 connectivity, those are all in our high-end WAX 650S. So when you see an S at the end, typically that means it's a smart antenna device. And so we'll be releasing additional Wi-Fi 6 smart antenna technology. But right now, for that, the highest end for us is the WAX 650S. And that offers a very big multi-gig connectivity for Wi-Fi using Wi-Fi 6 with smart antenna technology. Now, of course, we have dual optimized antennas as well for the other end, the lower end models. And so those are a little bit more cost effective, but still have, you know, in scenarios where you may not have as much interference for your hotspot, those are perfect. But if you're looking for high density, high traffic, high, you know, possibilities for co-channel interference, then you definitely want to consider the WAX 650S. That smart antenna technology helps to mitigate a lot of things. And then also using Wi-Fi 6 gives the user a better experience because there is multi-channel. You're not competing. It's almost like the traffic lanes that you saw there, but instead of just a single lane that everyone's merging into, it's now multiple lanes that you're merging into. So more people can continuously talk at the same time rather than just one at a time, right? It's just the conversation is now multiple people, multiple ears are listening to that conversation rather than just a single ear listening to that. So definitely that's going to help the overall experience of those users in a hotspot and make sure that their connectivity is good, their throughput, their expectations are good as well. So with that information, now that you have people in the hotspot, becoming more user aware of what's going on helps you to also become more secure. If you have a network that is just wide open and there is nothing there to give you that kind of information, then it's going to be really hard for you to know, hey, what's going on. So let's see, Paul asks, are smart antenna apps suitable for either horizontal or vertical mounting? So actually, smart antenna will be smart enough, the fact that you can put it in kind of any orientation. There is different different patterns that it will find. Typically, though, those smart antennas are mounted onto a ceiling. But if you do have wall mounts opportunities, it will handle that as well. If you're looking more without smart antenna, we do have the dual optimized antenna patterns where you can change the orientation of how the antenna flows or how the antenna looks, whether you're mounting it in the ceiling or into the side or into a sidewall. For the smart antenna, it will basically do it for you. It will find the pattern in that 3D space to figure out, hey, what is the best optimized pattern for you? So even though my picture was kind of a 2D, a flat looking out there, there is a, it's a 3D component, to it. But you kind of get the idea of that. All right, but now that you have more information about who's there, you can then secure and lock it down. Things like content filtering, things like intrusion detection and what apps people are using in order to block it. So they can help you kind of mitigate that kind of, those kinds of things, anything that may cause security issues. And of course, you can do that in a cloud solution. You can manage, hotspots that are in retail, teleworkers, campuses, hotels, with equipment, especially even within the cloud itself. So we have solutions like Nebula, which I'll talk about, that provide a hotspot solution built into that cloud capability. So you can manage things like Facebook Wi-Fi and things like that to help make your connection. So Facebook Wi-Fi allows for you to leverage your Facebook business site, and also to leverage the credentials of the end users themselves to be able to check in, to log in, and interact with even your Facebook page through that hotspot. So we have that integration with Facebook for that login process. And also it allows for some security because the authentication happens just between the device and Facebook themselves. We don't get to see that information. It's all just doing just like when you do any of those kinds of third-party login type things. And that also helps to give you some information, because they would agree to some information so that you can even do follow-ups or checkup or whatever it may be through your Facebook panels. And that just all depends on what you're looking for. So we have two options of the Facebook Wi-Fi in the Nebula Cloud. So we have a free version where there's some information where you just require some Facebook login, but then you can offer a pro within the Pro pack of the service licenses of the Nebula device that can allow for these other ones. It's usually on the Pro pack, it's a better user experience. They can keep their privacy with Facebook Wi-Fi. The venue owner can use that information for promotions via Facebook Wi-Fi. So there's again a monetary or a monetization function within that, because you now know who the user is. You can either provide maybe coupons, or if they're in a mall, you can then provide, hey, what's on sale. You can kind of tailor some of the advertising or things like that to that user, and be able to provide that information or get that information and create tools, create different things that can promote what's going on in the network. And then get some information of who maybe your clientele may be, and maybe that will help you with maybe your advertisements or things like that might help your business or that hotel or that retail chain sell something, right? So again, it's part of that gathering information and being able to use that information to help with what you're doing in business. On the UTM side, right, so far on the security side, we do things like traffic shaping with the tiered billing on the hotspot. So we have all-in-one capabilities outside the cloud to do as a standalone. We can drop in a device like our USG Flex models that I'll talk about. Those can go into a network and provide instantly a guest network hotspot with traffic shaping tier billing. Now I mentioned tiered billing about just straight up access, right? You have the low tier that's free, then you go to a streaming tier that provides some more bandwidth. And that's exactly what you can do. Is your free connectivity can be a 1 meg buffered or 1 meg traffic connection, right? That's your minimum offer. And if you want higher than 1 meg, so that you can do, HD streaming or, VPN access, those kinds of things, you can offer a higher tier that's a nominal fee. I've seen people put $2 to $5 a day, which is very reasonable to get access to the higher tier, be able to offer and to be able to use that connection. So we can actually traffic shape based on the tier that they've paid for, or if they're part of the free tier. You can then also isolate clients, and this is very important in hotspots. You don't know how many hotspots I've been to. Being a network tech kind of guy. First thing I usually do when I go to a hotspot, I don't know what you, maybe raise of hands. How many of you do this? When you first get to a hotspot, brand new, never been there before, you do a speed test. All right, so show of hands, if you go to a hotspot, you do a speed test because you want to know, right? Paul, Mark, Tyler, Kurt. See, so we're all in the same boat. John, we all go in and go like, okay, so how fast is the speed? Because I want to know. And then the next one could be like, well, what kind of equipment they might be using, because you'll see it in the hotspot pop up and things like that. But that's the first thing you want to know. And then the other thing that I check too is like, is this locked? Because since again, I'm a security person, I go, is this network even locked? And you'd be surprised how many public, hotspots that should be run by, enterprise level or corporate level kind of things, they're totally open, meaning that the clients are not even isolated from each other, meaning that if somebody has an iTunes share, a file share that they accidentally left on, I can gain access to that because I could see it in the network. So, some people don't realize that, hey, you have just a public hotspot. It's not a free-for-all. There could be potential issues that come into play. So client isolation is really big, using our APs, using our switches, using our gateways to be able to make sure that every device that's on the network cannot see each other, right? So they're completely isolated so that even traffic, if somebody comes onto the network and they're bugged, meaning that they've been compromised with some sort of malware, you don't want that malware to just go out, right? And just infect everybody who potentially is on that hotspot network. In fact, that's one way that even a malicious person can do that as well. They just take an infected PC and put it on the network and just try to infect as many people as they can while sitting in a hotspot. So it could be a really dangerous scenario. People are trained right now to just, oh, this hotspot must be safe, right? And not even know and connect to it, and potentially could get malware installed, any kind of ransomware, those kinds of things all into their system. So it's a big deal. I think that people don't realize happens. And so making sure that they're isolated helps tremendously in mitigating a lot of the security issues. In fact, that they can't go to any other devices. They can't look for servers. They can't look for your APs to try to hack. They can't go to your gateways, making sure that they can't go to other people's devices and shares as well. One-click support. So we also offer a point of sale solution. Like let's say at a coffee shop, you have a point of sale printer system, and I'll show you the printer in a bit. It's a thermal printer, allows for you to put maybe 3 pre-configured, options. Like maybe it's a 1 hour, a 5 hour, a 1 day pass. And just by pushing the button, it will print out a slip, a receipt that has a unique username, password, and the time and expiration. You can set all of that. And again, you can monetize that as well. So maybe there's a free connection that advertises, hey, you get baseline connectivity. If you'd like to pay for it, you can go up to the front desk and pay for, a $5 ticket, and they can print it out. And of course, you can also do it through the captive portal, and you can do the online payment. We integrate with PayPal, so they can just use PayPal to pay directly with the credit card. It will create a username, password, and authenticate them online. So you can do that with devices. You can set it up so that their connection, maybe their one account, can allow for 1 device, or you can say it allows up to 5 devices. Maybe there's a tier that lets you connect 10 devices, right? So again, we can work with different premium tiers that allow for you to still offer a free connection that is expected in most amenities, but then offer a premium that's an upgrade for those other services, and be able to tier them on bandwidth, on what kind of applications, how many devices. So that's pretty much covers like what you would typically need, when you're staying in these different types of hotspots. So it's very customizable. You can use the captive portals to also do revenue, or to gain access to revenue, because you can do advertisements on those captive portals. You can either house them within the device, or you can offload them and do an authentication page, like a walled garden type authentication page on your hosted site. So you could be a managed service provider that offers even hosting services for this type of login, where you will customize them. You can add advertisement, you can customize for the customer, or it can look just like the customer's website, but hosted on yours for authentication, right? So you can do all sorts of other revenue services that help. And on those as well, you can then put, coupons or deals or messages that may be pertinent to that hotel or to that hotspot for you to advertise. Or again, if you're in the business of, hey, I'm going to provide hotspots to as many customers as I want on my own dime, and I'm taking revenue based on just the upgrade tier, then you can do that kind of business model and see how that goes really. And we have some customers who actually do that, and it's very lucrative in the fact that they can do that, because the numbers, it's all a numbers game. You charge $1, $2, $5 a day. You get 5 people to do that. It's $50 a day, and times 30 days. That's quite a bit, right? It's quite a bit of revenue just from that very minimal amount for that upgrade. But instead of just throwing away, giving away for free, full access, you're bogged down with everybody using up 20 megs a second. You don't have that to pay for that connectivity. And this allows for you and allows for your customers to offer and to be able to pay for, if they can monetize it, they can pay for that higher tier of internet connectivity, that higher tier of Wi-Fi access, and gives them a better overall experience. You have also data retention information. So again, for security reasons or for audits, and nowadays with all these kinds of measures that are out there, being able to identify if somebody's abusing the system, having record of it is very important, especially if there's authorities that come and say, hey, we need this information because somebody on your network was doing this. You have access to that information, that data on the network. We also integrate with our wireless access points. So again, if you're not using it in the cloud solution, you can use it as standalone, and we can provision those devices, provision those access points directly on the gateways themselves. So that helps to eliminate, one more piece of hardware or one more piece of software that you have to install in the network. It's all housed in the ZYXEL devices there. We also have billing support. So we can build different accounts through a web portal, and be able to control that and be able to give that to the customer, or they can help themselves, like I mentioned, integration with PayPal. We also have Radius integration. So some of you partners have Radius servers or want to host a Radius server to allow for maybe interconnectivity. Let's say you have multiple sites or a customer that has multiple locations, and they want, hey, if they go to this beach hotspot area, and they subscribe to this Surf City Wi-Fi or whatever it may be, right? And they move to any one of the other partners within that beach or along the whole entire coast for that day, that hotspot is good, for the whole day. That could be something that you can do. That's where Radius authentication comes into play, because you can create the account into a Radius authentication, a Radius server, and any of those hotspots can use that for authentication. So once they've gone through a web page, they've paid for the service, they got an account created, it's added to the Radius server in the central or in the cloud. And any of these devices that are using that Radius server as an authentication method, the user can be authenticated and get access, right? So you can integrate some really creative things, allow for, many different ideas and things that how you can monetize it and charge for, a roaming capability of a hotspot. Usually a hotspot, you're stuck in that, right? You pay for that hotspot, you move to another hotspot, you have to pay it again. So that's one of those integrations that we've done that allows for you to be able to do that. So you can use an external portal, again, hosted offsite. You can use an internal portal, so you can have it built within the device itself. It's more limited in what you can do and, kind of the creativity or the look and feel, but it's still, if you have no access to like a remote hotspot or remote hosting, you can do that there. Or you can just go a simple user agreement page, right? We've been to hotspots where you just say, hey, I agree to these long lists of terms before I gain access. And you just hit the I agree button and it lets you on, right? So this is one option you have as well, both in the cloud and also in the standalone mode. You can also customize what data you capture, phone, email, other fields, whatever optional data you have once, you can actually capture that. And then they can just accept to complete the form, and then they get access to internet, right? So you have many different options you can do, and you can be pretty creative. And we've seen partners do some pretty creative things to have users kind of jump through a journey before they get to the final user agreement page, which then lets them have access to the internet, right? So it's some pretty cool things that you can do to capture information, capture data, as well as allow for them to have internet access. And of course, data is always about, getting data about people, at least their usability helps you to say, hey, this is where we're failing. This is how we can improve. This is how we can make things better. Let's see. Donald asks, is there a part of this solution that fits into and works with through the ZYXEL Nebula solution set? Yes. So we have a hotspot integration in the Nebula side of things as well. Mostly for, I have to double check if they have implemented the PayPal integration yet. That's only the difference there. They do have the tiered terms of service information. I will double check that on the Nebula side. But if you're looking to do more complex scenarios with the hotspot, then the gateway itself can be like a USG series, USG Flex, or VPN series. Can be the standalone device that provides you with the security in the hotspot. And then the bigger part of your network typically is, you'll have 15, 20 access points, or 5 to 10 switches, whatever it may be. Those are typically the ones that you want to manage in the cloud itself, because then it gives you the manageability of all those devices. Whereas then the gateway can be a single device, standalone. It's not as big of an issue, but we do have plans to integrate all of the kind of the hotspot features that you have in the standalone devices into the Nebula side. I know definitely they have the radius authentication. They have the Facebook hotspot, Facebook Wi-Fi, the portal page login. So you do have some levels there. It's just now, I don't know if they have the PayPal integration with the paid tiered services yet in the cloud yet, but it will be planned to be there. All right, so some of the accessories, this is the ticket printer. You can have up to 10 ticket printers on one of these gateway devices. So you can have maybe one at the front desk, one at poolside, and another point of sale, where they can use these to all, customly produce those tickets. So it's a 3-button printer that allows for you to choose, hey, all those presets, and you get to choose what the presets are and when they expire. So you can say, hey, it's a 24-hour period ticket. You can use unlimited bandwidth in that 24 hours, right, for that price. So that's allows for you to do that. And these all connect via Ethernet. So you just have to have it come back to this device somehow in your switch network. So now, one of the products that do provide you both security and hotspot solutions is the USG Flex series. This is our new USG Flex modeling. Our previous USG also supports that, but USG Flex now offers you high speed, which is what we're dealing with Wi-Fi 6 deployments in the hotspot, and also security at a very high level and a very high speed. So we have to take that into account, being able to offer higher throughput, and also making sure that it's secure. So USG Flex is built on performance, and it's built on kind of the usability of those applications. Make sure that those applications of UTM perform at a very high level. So it can be upwards of 500% better than the previous generation in terms of UTM performance. It has enhanced UTM, being able to do enhanced scanning, as well as using the cloud to be able to make sure that it does it very quickly as well. It has flexible management, both standalone. Nebula is going to come in Q1 next year. So this device will eventually be part of Nebula. So if you're looking for a hotspot solution that has Nebula with the high speeds and UTM, USG Flex will be there around Q1 next year. So just keep that in mind as you're kind of building things out. You can always put this as a standalone box now, and then come around a Q1 next year, you'll be able to just buy a Nebula license and now put it into Nebula management with your switches and your gateways. It provides high availability on the higher end models. So in case your connectivity, you don't want connectivity to go down for both the office, both the hotspot client, as well as their hotspot guests, right? Again, it's all about making sure it's available, making sure that it's secure. And of course, built-in wireless controller in there. So this is just a view of how it's improved. 25% better firewall performance, but the big one is the increased performance in UTM. You don't want to sacrifice security just so you can get better speeds. So now we can maintain higher speeds, be able to offer that at a very cost-effective price within what small businesses in these kind of hotspots are looking for or used to in that price range, but be able to offer up to 5 times better performance on the UTM. Now, this doesn't even count the new technology that we've implemented called Express Mode with UTM. And Express Mode, when you enable that, allows for you to scan files and with a cloud-based database. So that allows for you to do it very quickly. You don't have to scan individually like every file. You can just look it up to see, hey, does this file contain a virus? And it's already pre-scanned, somewhere on the cloud already with those kinds of signatures. All that hash information is available. So we use Zap. So in our portfolio for the USG Flex, we have right now 3 models, the USG Flex 100, USG Flex 200, and the 500, all of which are based on just performance and maybe port count and how flexible those ports are. Again, they'll be manageable in Nebula in the future, but you can use them in standalone. You can use Secure Reporter to get information from it as well in the cloud if you want to collect that data. But once it moves into the Nebula next year, it's going to offer a better visibility all in one within that cloud service. So again, throughput numbers are there. The high-end 500, we'll release a higher end model as well coming soon. But right now, just the main focus is the USG Flex 100, 200, and 500, addressing that maybe up to, I'd say up to about 100 users is the USG Flex 500. You probably could put more, maybe 200 people on there, but that's the case. And then lastly is our program. If you are not part of our program, I invite you to join it. It's a free program. If you're already part of our Zap program, our ZYXEL approved partner program, thank you for being a partner. It is a great way for you and also for us to be able to help you provide some bonus margin to help you out. So this one has a little bit of typo here because the bronze now, we just increased recently last month. All bronze partners now have 8% off. So when you sign up as a brand new partner, you get put into the silver tier. And so the silver tier offers a double-digit margin option at distribution so that you can compete against, visible street price that you see out there. In order to maintain this, you only have to have 6K in sales in 6 months. So that's 1K a month of sales to maintain silver. So really from this aspect, if you're talking about gateways and things, it's like selling like one hotspot gateway with a switch and an access point, and you pretty much are at that $1,000 mark. So if you can do that in 1 month, every month for 6 months, then you'll maintain silver plan. And hopefully though, you're doing a lot more business than that and be able to actually get up to the gold tier. So that's gold tier is just about twice as much in that same period, but it gives you the maximum discount possible with that through distribution. We use DNH, Ingram Micro, Synix, Wave, and Target. Now, if you can't maintain the silver, you'll get bumped down to the bronze, which then the bronze has a single-digit margin solution. But that still gives you a way that you could still, come back, get to the silver fairly quickly. Most of our partners, if they're in the bronze, they're really not selling anything. They may be selling the one-off, but if they're truly invested in what ZYXEL is doing and they're offering ZYXEL across the board with switches, access points, gateways, it's really easy to maintain your silver. In fact, it's actually not that hard either to get to the gold. So I encourage you to do that. Make ZYXEL your one-stop solution for any of your networking needs, because we feel that any network that's out there, whether it be Ethernet, wireless, security, IP cameras, surveillance, anything of those kinds of solutions, even telco equipment within a multi-tier building, any kind of those kinds of applications, ZYXEL has some sort of equipment. So definitely reach out to your sales rep, reach out to myself for that as well, so we can help you build out your solutions, because we feel like one project could probably make you for the whole year. That's what we've seen. We've had new partners who've come in with just a single project. It's not massive, but they are able to hit 12K in just that one project because of the entire solution that they can offer. All right, so I encourage you to do that. So now if you have any questions, please use the Q&A or use the chat box. Send me any questions you have at this point. Again, I like to be interactive and things, and it's a fun time to be able to talk with you folks and be able to tell you about technology and things like that. So if you have any questions, please send them to me. If you have questions maybe later on as you're thinking about it, you can also send me an email. My email is try@zyxel.com, or you can reach out to your sales rep and they can get a hold of me as well. And so we can work it out. We can talk through your applications, maybe your challenges, your maybe solutions that you're looking for. You might have an idea of how to monetize hospitality or monetize hotspots, and you want to run it by us. Hey, is this something that would work? Are you already doing this? In fact, we can leverage a lot of our experience. Ever since I've been here at ZYXEL, which I've been here now 16 years at ZYXEL, we've been, in the hospitality space. We've been providing hotspots, connections in schools, in hotels, in restaurants, anything you think of, we've done it. Coliseums, convention centers. So we've built and seen all sorts of sizes of applications. And of course, the challenge has always been, hey, hotels need to build them out, but hotels are having to give them away. And there's no way for hotels to maintain that cycle of constantly upgrading their Wi-Fi to meet their customers' demands and, pay for it out of pocket, basically. So how do we provide a solution that helps not only the partner to do the installation and to do the integration, but how can the hotel, be able to use that to monetize as well? Let's see, Paul says, do you have any recommendations or thoughts on power injectors for when a PoE switch isn't a fit? So we do have PoE injectors, like a PoE 12 HP product. It is a single port PoE injector with Ethernet that you can connect back. So you can use that to make your connectivity wherever it is, and it plugs into the wall. So it still gives you a wall jack, but it then allows for you to run, the Ethernet cable to wherever it may be. So if you don't have a wall mount jack or a power plug where that access point needs to go, that's probably your best option, because then you can still hide your cabling somewhere else, or you can, lock down a power plug and connect that PoE switch like in there. But most of the time, in general, it will be fine, because you are going pretty long distances. Now, the other option that you have, if you are okay with like a lower bandwidth for maybe some of those off reach places, then you can actually use our GS 1350 switches that provide you with extended range. So you can actually do 10 megabits per second on a Ethernet, like a Cat5, Cat6 cable, to go 800 feet. So 300 meters, roughly 300 meters. You can go that distance. Sorry, 250 meters at 10 megabits per second. So you can power up. The only thing the limitation is you'll get 15 watts of power. So you have to use an access point that is a lower power. You can't use the Wi-Fi 6 because that one needs a lot more bandwidth. It needs like a 30 watt power supply. So you have to either use an injector at that point and a PoE switch. But with Wi-Fi 6, the other thing I didn't mention is that you definitely need to consider your multi-gig capable switches with high-powered BT PoE. So 60 watt power. All of our high-end, our WAX 650S will consume or needs a power consumption of about 31 watts, which is beyond your typical PoE switches that you're using today with AT power. AT power is only 30 watts. So this is a 60 watt solution. So make sure you have to look at our XS 1930s. Those switches have a 60 watt power, a power capable port. So those are what's being used to power those Wi-Fi 6 to give it the highest performance. And it's also multi-gig. So that's the other thing that comes into your consideration for future proofing is people are now getting, gigabit connections to the hotel or multiple gigs. And be able to utilize that, you have to have switch networks and access point networks that can maximize that, or to be able to have the capabilities to do that. So you can start to offer higher and higher tiers. So some places that are doing, installations in a multi-tenant unit dwelling, where they have maybe multiple apartment buildings or people are in shared spaces, they offer, like a hotel, Wi-Fi coverage for the whole thing, but then use tiered billing to offer different plans for those customers. So based on their login information or maybe where they're connected, they're able to get different tiers of access in that Wi-Fi space. So you can utilize that kind of capability and then offer things, like, hey, here's multi-gig, or here's a gig's worth of Wi-Fi connection. So you have to build out that platform. You have to build out the infrastructure to be able to handle that. Okay. So for small shops, any plans for an ATP USG with PoE port or two? We do have plans. It's not going to be, right away, but there are discussions on a lower end box that have PoE built into it. The problem with it is that it's going to be kind of a very unique SKU, because if you're in a small kind of, if you're already in a small office or small space, finding a plug for your access point is probably not too hard. It's probably just on the same, same power brick as that device, that gateway. So having it just to do PoE injection on it is not usually as necessary. And then, of course, if you're going to go beyond, the normal range of an Ethernet and a power cord, if it's beyond that, and you don't have a plug somewhere else in that small office or in that space, then you could put a small PoE switch in there as like an injector, right? So you still have options to do that. So having it built in adds to the cost of that switch, and it becomes a very specialized switch where it's just made for PoE. There are advantages of it with the PoE, because then you could use that smaller switch for like 1 or 2 voice, but in an office environment, unless you're only in a 2-person or 1-person office, you're going to need more ports anyways for multiple devices, your servers, your printers, your telephones. So you're already looking at like at minimum an 8-port switch. So you might as well get an 8-port switch with PoE capability and connect that to the gateway. So again, PoE then becomes not as necessary, right? You have to have a big enough budget in those access points. Now we do have AP integration. So we have AP controllers in the devices that let you control them. So whether they're connected directly or in a switch network, PoE powered, they can still be controlled and still be optimized and provisioned. Thank you for your questions. All right, so if you have any other questions, again, please use try@zyxel.com, and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. We are quite busy this week. We have one of our salespersons on vacation, so we're also covering for them as well. But look forward to talking to you again. Hopefully this information was helpful. If you have any topics that you would love to hear more about, things that you're seeing in the industry, how does ZYXEL fit in these types of different topics, send me an email. We're always looking for new ways to engage with you as well and provide you information that's helpful to you from the ZYXEL perspective. So please send me those emails. I'd love to hear your information. And thank you, Paul. I appreciate you being here. And thank you, everybody. Appreciate all of you for spending the last hour with me here at ZYXEL. Again, my name is Tri Nguyen, and look forward to talking to you at another Tech Talk coming soon. So until next time, take care, stay safe, and have a good rest of your day.